Hi, wonderful people. I'm Leah. As a sociologist, University of Melbourne professor, founder of the Gender Equity Initiative, director of the Future of Work Lab, woman, wife, and mother, I've made it my life's mission to take down every ridiculous gender myth out there. Together, we'll deep dive into the research to get to the bottom of all these misperceptions that are holding all of us back. Don't worry, I've studied these types of questions for decades, and after publishing countless articles exactly on these topics, I know when they are nonsense or real truths. And I'm going to help you learn that too. So here we go. Let's do it. This is Misperceived. Do you like to get gifts? Do you love to give gifts? Are you a person who gift giving is this really critical piece of your love language? Like, it makes you feel so special, and you love when someone brings you a personalized gift. I'm going to tell you, I hate gifts. I am not trying to undermine those of you who love gift giving, and I'm going to say to you, I have incredible friends who are so talented in terms of baking or cooking or cakes or knitting, and they love to do that work. And those types of gifts are so thoughtful and well received because what you're getting is an extension of their love that is being shared with you. You're getting a feeling of something that they enjoy, that they're sharing with the world. Those are not the types of gifts that I'm harping on about. What I'm saying to you is gifts can sit though on a spectrum, right? There can be gifts that you pop into the store, you buy the cheapest, quickest gag gift that then falls apart in a minute, ends up in the landfill. That's still effort. Or you can have a gift that takes an incredible amount of time, energy, and insight to make sure that it's right. For those of us who love gift giving, please step in. But for those of us who don't, any way on that spectrum feels like work. And even if I have to give you a personalized, handmade, homemade gift, I am angry about that. I can't bake. I don't want to hand pipe cookies. I don't want to give my daughter that homemade gingerbread house because I don't care. And I am not good at it. So I want the pressure off me to have to do that. So let's start with, am I wrong? And I just have a bad attitude? Or is it a misperception that we should all stop buying each other gifts? And in particular, should women knock it off? I'm going to talk to you today about an article from Jennifer Hughes and Abigail Camden, and it's using Chapman's 5 love language theory to predict love and relationship satisfaction. Now, have you seen this love language idea? It's something that it does have an academic root, right? They talk about the evolution of this concept and the different ways in which love languages get measured in the psychological literature, but it also broke through, like in terms of pop culture. So many of you may already think about your life through the lens of love languages. But if you haven't, I've done the test a million times, but then you have to pay for your results and I'll never pay for it. I'm always like at the end, like, oh, I'm not going to pay the $20. Like I can already see what my love language is. There's 5 types, right? This is kind of a heuristic or a way of thinking about how each of us wants to be loved. And so what they're interested in is how does love language, your own and your partner's, predict your connection to your partner? I'm going to walk you through the 5 love languages that he raises. And it's just important to think you don't have to fall in one of these. You could fall across all 5. You could have 3 main, or the ratios could vary. You can change your love languages over time. What you value when you're younger may not be what you value as you get older. And so this is a fluid scale, but it helps you think about what do I really want in terms of my connection to my partner and maybe even to your friends, family, and community in terms of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So think about this more as a scale or kind of a moving understanding rather than firm, strict, narrow boxes that you either fall in or you don't. So for those of you who haven't seen Chapman's 5 love languages, let me tell you what they are. The first is affirmation. This is a love language in which people want to feel appreciated. They want their partner to say nice things to them, to communicate appreciation. They need a soft tone. They want kind words. They want humble requests. It's about compliments and making the other person feel good and loved by expressing admiration, love, soft tone, compliments through their love language. This is one of mine, as if you didn't know, right? Like I need a lot of compliments to feel safe. So this is, I think, one of my love languages. I'm curious if this is one of yours too. And I'll tell you actually what's the most common one. Don't worry. The second love language is quality time. This is the idea that we like to feel loved, or we feel loved through undivided attention, through doing something together in a way that creates a sense of togetherness, of having, say, a quality conversation, sharing your thoughts, your feelings, your desires without interruption, and being kind of sympathetic to do things together in a way that makes us feel like it's quality time and we're uninterrupted. This is also one of my love languages. Is this one of yours? The third is this act of service. It's the idea that your partner knows what you like and they do things for you. It could be things like doing the dishes or cooking because they know this is something really critical. He basically says that this has to be done with positive thought, energy, and planning. It's not something like you're in banging the dishes around because you know your partner wants you to do the dishes at the end of the night. That's not a love language. That's called passive aggressive energy. I have done it, of course, but it's about actually doing things with intention, acts of service, because you know that your partner likes those things. I will let you in on my marriage, just a little squiz, because you're probably curious. My husband is really quiet. He's quite introverted and he's quite reserved. It is funny because I am the exact opposite, but his love language is often acts of service. So he will be the first to drive someone somewhere, pick something up, bring home dinner, but he does these things where he's really thinking about what you need and when you need it and how you need it and how to love you through this type of acts of service. Whereas I'm there just blah, 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 blahing. And then basically additional research looked at this act of service kind of dynamic that Chapman had used. And what they basically say is there's kind of two different divisions. There's like domestic service, which is looking at the housework stuff. And then there's manual service. You can imagine this is highly gendered. Who's the person taking care of the cars, the maintenance of the house? Who's the person doing domestic service, cleaning, cooking, taking care of the children? This has a gendered element. I've told you a million times about the gender division of housework across a range of our podcasts. Are men dirt blind? Are men who do more dishes, do they get more sex? So it's interesting because they're bringing in these same ideas into the love language, but through this idea of acts of service, that these types of acts of service matter. And I want to say to you that the sociological literature is really clear that these types of acts of service are pretty gendered. And so there is a question about, do you want your partner, if you're in a heterosexual union, to do, stereotypically masculine or feminine things, or do you like when they cross the boundaries and do stuff for you that is, perhaps something that you're supposed to do, but they've taken on that as an act of service. The fourth love language is physical touch, that this is a really powerful way to communicate whether you're connected to each other, whether you love each other, touching, hugging, holding hands, kissing, or sexual acts. That's just sex, right? Basically. And that this is a type of love language that helps connect people. I will say that I found having a child, and maybe those of you who are parents in there, you can see that little kids, that's a really critical love language, right? That physical touch is so critical. And they talk about in Chapman's article that basically if people can give you your love language, it fills your tank. It fills you up, or it depletes you. And so you can see with little kids that physical touch is such a way to fill their tanks. But also I found when my daughter was really little, and even now, is a way to fill my tank too, right? You didn't know maybe your tank was on empty, but then you get this beautiful little child who just wants to be held and loved and kissed and snuggled, and it can be one of the greatest things. The fifth love language and final is receiving gifts. Gift giving is something that people do across cultures, across the world, and gift exchange is a really important part of social connection in culture, right? It's about showing that you care about someone. And what he says is and of course, gift giving varies culturally in terms of its importance and in terms of what it does in terms of social networks. So I understand that I am a woman saying, I hate gift giving, but that is from a cultural position where I can step out of gift giving without social consequence. That may not be true in other cultures, and acknowledging that is important. He notes that these gifts don't necessarily have to cost money. It's just that it feels like you are giving someone something that connects to their love, like that is showing you care and love them. And so they make the argument that so basically what this article is trying to do is understand if, first they're talking about there's different ways to measure love language, and that there's different kind of approaches, and, there's different scales, and that they're discussing this across the psychological literature. So I just want to know, because I know sometimes we think, this is a little pseudoscience. What does that look like? Is it too pop culture-y? And I'll say that this love language scale from Chapman has evolved over time, and people have picked it up and kind of augmented it or given complementary scales. But this article, they're going to use it, right? They're going to use the love language scale, and they're interested in what happens when you have a love language, your partner gives you that love or not. That's their love language or not, and what happens to your connection. And what they're interested in, whether that actually intensifies your feelings of love for your partner, if that makes you more satisfied. And they look at both heterosexual and gay relationships. And the argument is basically love language should transcend. Love language should transcend sexual orientation. It should transcend gender. It's really about whether you understand what is being given to you and whether you're getting your tank filled from that interaction. So what they do is they take 1,000 people. They have 981 participants. About 500 are cisgender women, 500 are cisgender men. They're in heterosexual partnerships. They have about 174 women who are in lesbian relationships and about 170 men who are in gay relationships. And they're living in the U.S. And they're interested in these kind of different components of love, about intimacy, passion, commitment, to measure whether people feel close, connected, and bonded. And they basically ask what people's love languages are on a scale and see whether they're connected. So what do they find? The first thing they find is that the top preferred love languages were, in order, 1, quality time. That was the most frequent. 40% of the sample want quality time. Second, 40% too is physical touch. So the top two are quality time and physical touch. The other love languages are way less common. My love language, words of affirmation, only 22% said that was one of their top love languages. Acts of service, what my husband does for me, is 13%. So I'm trying to tell you I'm pretty exceptional, basically, what's clear. And the least common, the absolute bottom of the list, was gift giving. And so what they find is that, of course, across all these measures, and they looked at them separately, if you have this preferred love language, say of quality time or words of affirmation, and you perceive that your partner does that love language well, you report that you're more in love with that person. Sometimes, in some instances, you also reported greater relationship satisfaction. That was only true for words of affirmation, quality time, and physical touch. So if your partner can do your love language, you feel more in love with them. You may or may not be more satisfied with your relationship, right? So just because you're in love with them doesn't mean you're satisfied with your relationship. Send us your comments about that. We'd like to hear it. It's not necessarily parallel. And what they're saying is that, yes, that isn't true. But in situations in which your love language is words of affirmation and that person can do that, then yes, you report more love, but also greater relationship satisfaction. Same with quality time and same with physical touch. Now, I know this whole thing is about gift giving, right? So how does a gift giving fit in? And I already told you, hey, actually, most people, that's not their top love language. It's not. But what they do find is that for women whose love language is gift giving, if their partner can meet that love language, they do feel more connected to the partner. They do feel more in love with them. And they also feel that way more than men whose love language is giving gifts. But this isn't the only love language that women value. Basically, women who, preferred love language is acts of service and their partner gives them that also feel more love for their partner than do men. And the same is true when it comes to physical touch. So what I'm trying to say to you in this is that for women, getting the love language right is more important in terms of love and connection than it is for men. So I'll take that a step back just so I can make sure that I'm saying this in a way that we're all on the same page. Knowing your partner's love language and receiving that type of love is important, according to this article, for the connection between you two. But for women, it's more important than men. Women really want you to know that and meet them in that space, and that helps strengthen their love. And they also find this across relationships. So it didn't really matter if you were in a heterosexual union or you were in a lesbian union or you were in a gay union. Love language, acknowledging and knowing that, meeting your partner there was critical, right? That this was something that transcended gender. And when they did find the gender differences, they found them that it was more important for women. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's not important for everybody, but for women, it's particularly important across relationships. I just want to say one last thing from another study before I get to my little conclusion and my feedback about what I think about all of this. But they talk about the study from Schofield in 2012, where they show that actually men and women show affection in similar ways, but they express love differently. And what they say is for married women, expressing love is about having fewer negative interactions. Like they want to just be cruising through the relationship without conflict. But for married, like that's a sign of a good relationship. We're moving through, we're not having conflict. But for men, they were reporting that expressing love was done through initiating sex, sharing leisure activities, and doing more housework for their partners. So there is this, again, other evidence that there's this kind of like misunderstanding in these heterosexual unions about what they want from the other. So women are wanting, hey, get my love language, understand it, and connect to me in that way, and let's have fewer negative interactions. That's important for men, but less. And men are thinking about like, let's have as much sex as we can. Let's spend more leisure time together, and I'm going to do the housework, and hopefully that will work. It doesn't. We have a whole podcast on this, but you can listen. Do men who do more housework get more sex? They don't. So don't tell the men. So let's come back to this. Is this a misperception? Should we all stop buying each other gifts? Like there's an incredible amount of pressure on everyone for gift giving at these really critical moments in time where there's an intensity of gift giving around Christmas, around birthdays, around holidays. And, sometimes people talk about like they stack on top of each other, right? Like I'm supposed to bring something for Thanksgiving, and then I'm supposed to bring something for Christmas, and then I have to bring a gift for New Year's to acknowledge the host. So should we knock it off? And should women in particular knock it off? Well, the research kind of suggests yes. Very few of us care about gifts as our love language. Rather, we prefer time together and physical touch and telling us that we're doing a good job. Some of us do prefer to get gifts from each other to show we love each other. And for those people, it goes much further if it is the woman receiving the gifts. Now, this research is talking about gift giving amongst partners, right, in romantic relationships. But maybe some of the ideas transcend into our friendships, into our communities, into how we interact with each other. And so maybe if we can understand our value of love languages or what we want from each other as a social contract, we can shift how we interact. Now, I know in some cultures, again, it's really hard because gift giving is central, but at least if we can have a conversation maybe with our immediate family or something and decide, do we really want to exchange as many gifts with each other or not? You can kind of filter when gift giving is really, really important for each other because it expresses our love versus when it's something we do because we feel like we should. This is bigger than just our partnerships. I'll say that there's an expectation for women, in particular in heterosexual unions, about getting gifts as a way to compensate for men perhaps not giving them the other things, quality time, or, there's a financial expectation. This fits within gender norms. And so maybe we're socialized as women to expect gifts to indicate love when we can't get those other things, when we can't get the physical touch, when we can't get the quality time. But if we're honest with each other, maybe we don't care that much about that. Maybe it's more important to say to your partner, I actually want the quality time with you. Can we do that? Can we figure out how to do that? It doesn't have to be a huge amount of time, but it's about uninterrupted, deep conversation, eye-to-eye contact where you're talking about things you love. So, in conclusion, what this means to me is that we're all off the hook for giving gifts to each other. And instead, let's just spend more time together. If you love gifts, let us know. If you love giving gifts, let us know. We'll love to receive them with open arms and enthusiasm. And we will make an exception for you and make sure that your husband or partner knows that this is what you need, and we will tell him to step in. I hope this takes a little pressure off you anytime where there's this expectation to give gifts. Most of us would rather just be with you. We don't want anything from you. We don't need you to do anything for us. We just want to spend time to you. And Narelle, you know I'm talking to you. As per usual, thank you for listening to Misperceived, where you don't need a PhD, but you just get to come hang out with me. You're so lucky. And I'm so lucky. Your time here is such a gift to me. So thank you for that. Follow us at Misperceived Podcast on our Instagram at Prof. Leah, or on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you can give us a rating, that would be really helpful. We're starting to climb the ranks. Like, we are starting to chart. Oh, I just thank you so much for that. I love you and I thank you for that. So anything you can do to help that is the gift. They'll be the greatest gift to me. Full stop. Period. Thanks so much. Mwah. This podcast was produced with the support of the incredible Sophie Squires, the wonderful Kate Danger, the fantastic Rich Berner, and the one and only, the best ever made, Serena Reagan. I would like to acknowledge that our podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today.